Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to wait a minute for everyone to join us. So feel free to grab some water, get a good seat, and we're excited to talk to you soon about being undecided at Syracuse. Hopefully you had a great day. I know it was a gorgeous day here in Syracuse, New York, and wherever you're at. I know we have students joining us from across the country, even some students internationally today. So hopefully you had a beautiful day where you are as well. All right, people are still filtering in. It's so good to see. I think we're gonna have a great group tonight. And so we'll get started in just a moment. Okay, I think we're good to start. Welcome, my name is Mike McGrath. I'm an assistant director here in the Office of Admissions. So excited to be able to talk with you today. I'm also a proud alum of Syracuse University, and something that you'll see as a running theme. I had no idea of what I wanted to study. I came in a biology major in the College of Arts and Sciences. I transferred to our School of Education, then to the Newhouse School of Public Communication, and ended up graduating with degrees from the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School in History and Art History with multiple minors. And so I think that's a common story we hear from our students, but it's also a common story of our panelists. So I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Jesse Schaffner. So Jesse is an assistant director in the Office of Admissions as well. And Jesse, why don't you talk a little bit about your academic journey?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. As Mike said, it is a common theme. It makes much sense since we're in the undecided session. But I also, when I went to college, was extremely undecided. I came in from high school really having no idea what I wanted to study as I went into that collegiate career, and really no idea what my passion was at that point either. And so I felt like I could go in, explore different options. I ended up changing my major just within 2 short years, 5 different times, attempting to make my own major as well. That just did not go well, and ended up graduating from my college with a major in English as well as Africana Studies. And I found both of those to just be classes I really enjoyed and really entrenched in the liberal arts, which was something very important to me and my interests overall. So that's just a very short splattering of what my college pathway looked like.
Thanks, Jesse. And I also want to introduce Nathan Raybeck, who is the lead advisor from academic advising in the College of Arts and Sciences. Nate, I think you also have a similar story, right?
I do. So I want to welcome everybody to our session this evening. So when I started in college back in the dark ages, I started first as a philosophy major. And then I realized, you know what? I need to add history to this as well. And then I said, no, wait, I need political science as well. And then I discovered the field of religion. And because not one of those was unemployable enough, I started and I finished with all 4. Then I decided I'm not finished yet. So I went to Yale University to study divinity, and then realized, in the words of Matthew McConaughey, that I was a man of the cloth without the cloth, and that really wasn't going to work for me. So then I went to a PhD program at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I majored there in a program that worked through religion, philosophy, and education. And despite all of that, I got a job at Northwestern Mutual in the wealth management division, because that is the power of the liberal arts core, and that is the power of following what it is that you're interested in and building and crafting your own way forward.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nate. I think now we want to hear from you. Some of you might be in a place where you have multiple interests. Maybe you have an idea, but you're not really sure and want to explore your options, or you might really just be undecided. You have no idea where to start. And so we're going to release a poll that's going to help us figure out where you're at in the process. And hopefully we can speak a little bit to each one of those throughout our time tonight. So if you wouldn't mind filling that out, we'll have this up for a little while, but I am gonna hand things over to Jesse to kick things off and talk a little bit more, not only about what it means to be undecided at Syracuse, but explain a little bit about Syracuse and our academics, because for some of you, you might not even be aware of our offerings. So we wanna make sure that we help you at every step of the way. So Jesse, love to hear a little bit more from you.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that we really want to discuss as we're thinking about undecided is, what does it mean to be undecided? And from that poll, you can see that undecided is really an overarching topic with many, many different facets underneath of that. And it might mean that you're struggling between two different ideas that you have. It might be that you have a lot, or how I like to describe it is you could have a dartboard, use a dart and just hit it, and whatever major it hits, that's what you're going to study. That is all fine. I want to say right now, what undecided is not, before we kind of go into what it is it does not mean that you as a student are unmotivated or do not have a passion. Being undecided just means that you want to explore. High school is not built out for you to really figure out what your specific major should be. Most high schools, you're taking a lot of that kind of core curriculum, right? A lot of those social sciences, humanities, mathematics, natural science programs. You might never be able to take a film class to realize that film is your passion overall. And so no, when you go into the college scope, that is what college is there for. College is there for you to really explore your opportunities and figure out what matches you in both your passions in the classroom as well as outside the classroom. And so I really want you to think about the fact, as you are undecided going into college, is you are not alone. You can very easily see from just some of these statistics up on the presentation, up to 50% of students on a national scale are undecided as they come into the university. And Syracuse University is no different. When we're thinking of our applicant pool, almost 40% of our students are coming in to the university, applying to the university as an undecided student. And then even more so than that, even the students who come into the university might realize they were actually undecided and decide to change their major. And so our average student actually will change their major twice by the time that they graduate. So do not feel, when you are in that undecided spectrum, that it's going to limit your opportunities and your availabilities in college overall. Purely, it means that you just need to find what your fit is. What is a genuine interest you have, right? Find a subject matter that really matches that genuine interest, because then you're going to be successful in that interest. Now, when we think of kind of that undecided level at Syracuse University specifically, it's important to know overall, when we're thinking of the university, we have about 15,000 undergraduate students. And those 15,000 undergraduate students are going to be comprised of 10 different schools and colleges. And so when a student applies into Syracuse University, they're ultimately going to apply into one of those 10 schools and colleges. And so with that, you will ultimately have to apply into a school or college, but don't get freaked out by that, because in most cases, you can actually apply as an undecided student. We want to give a student as much academic flexibility as we possibly can. We very much understand that our students want to explore what we do have to offer. So you can see on this page here, we offer about 200 majors and 100 minors to select from across those 10 schools and colleges. So there is absolutely a lot to explore. And there is this flexibility across the different colleges and schools as well. So when you come in as a student, some students might decide, I want to come into a specific major. But again, many of our students are coming in as an undecided student, really figuring out where they fit at the university. And really for our programs, you have all the way until the end of your sophomore year. And that might not sound like a lot of time, but that's 4 full semesters. That means that you have the chance to take on average within those 4 semesters about 20 classes across the entire university. And so this really allows you to, this is going to be a common word, explore, right? If you think of 3 or 4 different majors that might be of an interest to you, take a class in each of those. That's one of the biggest benefits of Syracuse, in my opinion, is that no matter which school or college you are ultimately studying in, you can take classes across the entire university. We have many students who will decide to take some classes just one-off in different areas, but actually about 50% of our students will study more than one thing by the time that they graduate. And oftentimes that's because they're trying out different classes in the university, that they decide they want to minor in a different school or college, or even sometimes do a second major in a different school and college. And so we really do want our students to ultimately graduate in what is most interesting to you. And kind of that process of changing schools and colleges, changing your major, I know that that can also be a little bit scary when you think of an undecided student. It's important to know for us that we have processes for students to be able to do that. I think you can very clearly understand that just based off of Mike's examples of his own experience, right? Just in that little conversation, he talked about changing 4 different schools and colleges here at Syracuse. And so there are processes to change between the schools and colleges. It's a little bit of a short application process. Don't get freaked out. I promise we're not going to ask you to do the common application all over again. It's a short process for each of those schools and colleges. But then also, if you're just changing majors in the same school or college, it's generally about a half sheet of paper signed by 2 department chairs to make sure that you are within the academic standing to be able to make that change. So we do, again, really want you to find your fit. And just very basically, when we're talking about changing between those schools and colleges, because I know a lot of universities like to jargon it up and give you different things with that, please know that it is called an intra-university transfer. So if you ever hear that, that's what we're actually talking about. And then just to kind of go back to a larger framework to give you a better understanding of these schools and colleges that I'm speaking about, those 10 undergraduate schools and colleges, those are the ones that are going to be listed here. So when you're thinking of applying on your common application, you're going to ultimately select one of these schools and colleges to start your path off in. And I think I can bold and underline that statement of start your path, because again, most of our students, the way that they're starting is not necessarily the way that they are ending. And so that's just something really clearly to know about us. What's also great to know about the university as a whole is that Syracuse University, in my opinion, is the perfect match between a pre-professional university offering, you can tell by these schools and colleges, many schools and colleges that are geared towards a specific career path, while still being extremely entrenched in the liberal arts, something that Nate spoke about of him really loving, and me too. I really believe that liberal arts curriculums are the cornerstone of all universities, but the cornerstone of careers and professionalism as well. And so Syracuse University does have 2 liberal arts colleges. Those are going to be Maxwell School and the College of Arts and Sciences. That's going to be where our humanities, social sciences, as well as natural science programs are housed. It is also our largest undecided pool, for the fact that they're liberal arts. They give you a ton of flexibility. They give you the building blocks of many professions, really across the university, but also really across all career spectrums. And so when we think of liberal arts, the core curriculum that Syracuse University does have, I often talk to students and I'll say liberal arts, their core curriculum, and you see a little bit of a glaze over the eyes. And that's because I think that, again, colleges and universities really love to use jargon, and we say liberal arts, general requirements, gen ed, core curriculum. And so you hear these and you find these important, but you're really not sure what they mean. So don't worry, I got you there. A liberal arts core curriculum, anything of that nature, means that as a university, we are asking you to take classes outside of your ultimate major by the time that you graduate. They are in overarching areas that we see as huge benefits for students, really giving you this holistic approach to education. Now, please know when you hear that, a lot of students are like, oh my gosh, high school all over again. You're telling me what classes I need to take. No. And that's a huge benefit of Syracuse as well, because on average, we teach about 5,000 classes a year. And so when we're telling you, you have to take a writing intensive class by the time that you graduate, or a diversity class, or a quantitative class, you are not being told that you must read Shakespeare, or you have to take a chemistry class. If you've done that in high school and you're like, never again, it can still be never again. We want you to explore classes that ultimately match with what you're interested in. Just to use myself as an example, and it's actually how I found one of my majors, Africana Studies, is my university required a diversity class. And so I decided to take Africana 101. It was an overarching of the African diaspora across the globe. It was something I, one, had never learned about in high school. It just wasn't part of the curriculum. And two, it just sounded interesting to me. And that took my diversity class kind of out of my liberal arts, but it was also something I found out that was fascinating to me. And that's what happens for a lot of our students, is they find a class or a course or a major that they've never heard of or they've never explored before, and they connect to it really at a base level. And so these liberal arts and core curriculum classes might look a little bit different in each of our schools and colleges. Each school and college does have a little bit of different classes they might ask you to complete, but at the very base level, it is this overarching idea that we want you to be able to innovate, to relate to one another, to be able to public speak, to write at a strong level. I can tell you all of those qualities, a lot of the soft skills for a profession, are difficult to teach when you are not put in an uncomfortable position, when you're not asked to stretch outside of your bounds. And so you might not love every single liberal arts class. I can tell you one of my lab classes I had to take in college was earth science, and that was a class never again, but it put me in a position that I'm not gonna ever use sedentary rocks and the knowledge of that again in my life, but it put me in an uncomfortable position that I still needed to be successful in. And that right there is a skill that we hope to teach you. And so when you are undecided, know that at least for this first year, when you might be taking the liberal arts, you are really allowing yourself to grow as a person in education, but also in a professional field as well.
I believe that takes it over to me for some questions for us to ponder. So I want to start by doing a quick pivot. I want to pivot to something that every one of you here is not undecided on, and that is the importance of your story, your interests, your passions, what drives you, what makes you see inequalities in the world and point them out in a declarative fashion to the world for you to see, saying, I will not stand for this. Well, it's also the same thing that makes you take a picture of your brunch and say, #fire, because brunch is awesome. You're engaged. I want you to think about what your story is. Because the only question you ever need to ask of any college, of any university is this: can I tell my story here? And if I don't know what that story is or how that story might unfold, are there resources available at this college or university to help me figure that out? Because whether you want to be a biology major or an English major or a history of art major or don't know major, your story is a vital part of not only who you are, but who you'll become. The ultimate goal of the liberal arts is not to prepare you for a certain career. It's to transform you to engage your values, your interests, your passions with the world around you. 20 years ago, Snapchat didn't exist. And now you can't think of an industry that doesn't use some aspect of social media. How are you going to prepare yourself for not the careers of tomorrow, but for the things tomorrow has yet to think of? That's what the liberal arts do for you fundamentally. That's how we can take all the flexibility of those 5,000 classes that we have options to choose from here at SU and weave them in to your story. Here in the College of Arts and Sciences, just as an example, and this is just an example because every one of the 10 colleges that we talked about has a unit that does this. We have 11 people, 11 full-time staff members dedicated to talk to people just like you who are beginning to search out the dimensions and the parameters of their story. We have things like the Strong Interest Inventory, which will give you an opportunity to not only sit down and answer a series of questions to figure out what it is that you're really passionate about, but then to sit with a strong certified advisor to walk you through how we might use some of those general education requirements to best map on to those things that best fit your story. And finally, a major point to talk about is this. You are never alone. As a member of the Orange family, from the beginning that you make your deposit at SU to right as you walk across that stage, someone in the advising office will be there with you every step of the way, whether you're in VPA, whether you're in Newhouse, whether you're in Maxwell or the College of Arts and Sciences or any of the other colleges. You are never, ever gonna have to be all on your own. We are here to help guide you, help challenge you, help push you to be the best you can become, whatever that means, whatever that means. And wherever you are on the initial poll that we started with, you're fine. You're okay. Because as long as you come to us engaged, open-minded, optimistic, passionate, we have a program for that at SU. We have a major for that at SU. We have a combination of skill sets we can build for you at SU. After all, no one's story is really self-contained within one college. And one of the things that Syracuse University does better than any other place that I've seen is let you weave the tapestry of your story from the multiple threads of the colleges and programs we have here. If you want to do it, if you're interested in that, we have that, and we can help you find that. And that, believe it or not, is a career academic advising session here at Syracuse University, right here for you. That's what we do, and my office alone has 23 different staff members, and I want you to think about that. I want you to think about all the wonderful people that are sitting here with you right now on this call. Think of the dedication that the university has placed in this most perilous time, dedicated to your success, because we are interested in your story. So welcome. And with that, I think I'm going to turn things back to either Jessica or Mike.
Alrighty, kind of to finish things up here. First, I feel extremely hyped up by Nate that now I'm like, yes, I'm going to apply to Syracuse as an undecided student and go to your advising. But just to kind of broaden the lens a little bit, really think, because I'm sure quite a bit of you on this call are thinking about applying to Syracuse. You might be a senior right now, even looking at the common application and kind of deciding how do I want to approach my time into the university. And based off of that poll, it seems that there are quite a match of different people across the spectrum of where they are decided. Looks like most people have a kind of an idea of what they'd like to do, whereas about 40% of you or so are kind of doing multiple interests. And, you know, the no idea percent of you, I feel you. That dartboard is your friend. But all of you, when we're thinking about going into the university, just want to briefly talk about what that application process is going to look like, because it's probably a little bit different than maybe some of your friends who are applying into university, or even possibly different from other colleges you might be looking at. So the first thing to know with Syracuse is that we are common application exclusive. So it's the only place you're going to apply to for us. When you are on that common application, yes, you can say we're another checkmarked box, but there is going to be a section that actually comes directly to Syracuse University. And the first part of that is actually where you are going to say which of those 10 schools and colleges you would ultimately like to apply into. Now, I gave you that full list of the 10 schools and colleges earlier, so you can definitely feel free to kind of look at the larger list on your own. But I did want to bring your attention to the specific schools and colleges that Syracuse offers that has an undecided path. So you can see those here. And the biggest difference between these undecided paths is that if you decide to go into Maxwell School or the College of Arts and Sciences, those liberal arts-based programs that we offer, you're going to have a wider range of exploration opportunity. You're not going to have the specific subset of classes that you need to necessarily take that first year. So this, for those of you who are thinking of many different programs, probably is going to be your best pathway, because again, it's really going to be the largest exploration option. But for those of you who are maybe sitting there saying, well, I kind of have an idea I want to do, and especially if you're sitting there and you have an idea of what you want to do and it's in a pre-professional area. So let's just off this list say that you're interested in the Whitman School of Management, which is our business school. You can apply undecided to our business school and explore the opportunities in our business school. And this is for students more so who are deciding between a specific major in a pre-professional school rather than the entire university. Again, for Whitman, let's say you're deciding between finance and accounting, and who knows, maybe you also would really like entrepreneurship and emerging medias, right? This is going to be your best pathway of coming in, taking classes across that business area, and ultimately being able to declare that a little bit down the line. But you know, when you apply undecided into a pre-professional school and college, you actually are going to like that curriculum. Don't apply into engineering as an undecided student if you're kind of thinking, I kind of like English. I think that's a good spot for me, right? You want to make sure that where you're applying is ultimately going to make sense for where your strengths lead and really what's of interest to you overall. So important to know is that we do offer those options on the common application for most cases, we're really just looking at your first choice school or college, and the major is more so up to you of what you're ultimately interested in. But please also know Syracuse University does offer a second choice school or college option. We do this really broadly to allow students that if they're not admittable into their first choice school or college, to be reviewed on a space by available basis by the admissions committee for that second choice school or college. Again, just because many of you are probably thinking about the common application, to just round out our conversation on what the rest of the application is going to look like for Syracuse outside of that common application. Syracuse does require 3 recommendations, so 2 are going to be from teachers and 1 are going to be from a counselor. I get the question all the time for students who are undecided: who should I have my recommendation be written by as a teacher, right? Like if you're applying, let's say, into biology, it probably would make sense for a science teacher to write that. But if you're undecided, what do I choose? Honestly, I would say that is completely your choice. Choose a teacher who you have a strong relationship with, somebody that can really talk to your strengths, because those strengths are generally going to be across all disciplines, right? If they say things like, you constantly are one of the first to raise your hand in class, you're really a great leader, you come after school and get extra classwork done or ask for extra help. That's not necessarily for one specific program. We want that for all of our programs. We want that hard work for everybody. So just think about that critically. Obviously, we'll need your transcript. And then last but not least, important to know for anybody who is going to be applying for fall 2021 or spring 2022, Syracuse University has made the decision to go test optional. So this means we are 100% test optional for all of our programs on campus. The easiest way to think about test optional, because I've been getting a lot of questions on this, is think of it almost like class rank. Some high schools do class rank and they give it to us as part of the application process. A lot of high schools no longer do class rank and they don't send it to us. If a student has class rank in their application, it's part of their application, so we're going to see it and we're going to review it. If a high school doesn't send it to us because they don't do it, then we're not going to have it as part of the application process. Testing is the exact same. If you send it to us, it is going to be part of the application process. We will review it. If you do not send it to us, it doesn't have any effect, either positively or negatively. It's just not a factor any longer outside of that. And then the last piece I would say is, if you do decide that you really want to give a little bit more personality to your application, you want to describe who you are and maybe what your vast interests are overall, then I encourage you to maybe sign up for a personal interview. Obviously, with a global pandemic, we are not going to be doing those in person this year as we normally would, but we are hosting them Mondays through Saturdays, multiple times across the day, all via Zoom. So definitely something that can very easily fit within your schedule. And so if that's something that you are comfortable with, I think it is a huge benefit to every application. And then the last piece is just to think of our deadlines, which is early decision or regular decision. Early decision is our November 15th binding deadline, and regular decision is our non-binding, so you can review us and other institutions, and deadline, and that is going to be a January 1st deadline. So that just gives you a little bit of insight within that overall. But on that note, I want to give it back to Mike and maybe open it up for some Q&A if we've had any questions out there. So thank you all.
Thanks, Jesse. So we have quite a few questions that have already come in. If you do have some questions, feel free to send them through the Q&A tab. We're going to be excited to answer those for you. So either about the admissions process, about our schools and colleges, maybe about what it means to be undecided. If you have additional questions about the support for students, both Jesse and Nate are really going to be excited to answer those for you. And so first question, I'm going to throw to Nate. We have a question from Claudia about what major or school would be best for someone who wants to be pre-law. And I really wish Laura was here for you to talk a little bit more about that advising.
Yes, because we actually have a pre-law advising staff. My colleagues Laura and Rachel both work in that office. They're absolutely phenomenal. The biggest way for me to respond to that is simply to sort of turn it right back around and simply say, it's really whatever motivates you. There is no necessarily pre-law curriculum. And so the best thing you can think about is to sort of imagine yourself in that future role. What are the skills? What are the assets that you're really going to need that law schools are going to look for? Well, they're going to look for your ability to read critically. They're going to look for your ability to write cogently, concisely, persuasively. They're going to look for the ways in which you can express your thoughts and dissect ideas, tease out what's really the heart of the matter. And so if you think about it in terms of those aspects, whatever kind of course selection or major or college you want to put together with that builds on those skills, that's right for you, will be right for them. We've had people who come from Whitman or VPA or engineering go to amazing law schools, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, etc. We've had people that come out of the College of Arts and Sciences to do that. We have people that come from Newhouse. It really, really depends on what is, again, to go back to a theme that I mentioned earlier, what's best with your story? What is it that motivates you to want to pursue law as a possible career, or at least an area of interest? How can that best resonate with you, as well as the kind of critical thinking and critical reflection skills that we want to build? Because trust me, there are a lot of different ways we can build that. The best way to think about that is to engage at the outset with what it is that motivates you and what are the kinds of areas we really want to hone in. And that's what I would say, and I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Nate. This next question is for Jesse. What school offers majors regarding environmental sustainability or public health?
Absolutely. So when we are thinking of environmental sustainability, I would say that probably the College of Arts and Sciences is going to be a place that you would look at. Specifically, our integrated learning major of environment, sustainability, and policy, I would say is probably going to be of pretty big interest to you. Integrated learning major is a big old fancy way of saying that it's interdisciplinary. So it means that you are not only taking classes specifically in that area of environmental sustainability and policy, but it also means you're going to be taking classes in a different area. So actually, you could also take our public health program in Fall College and combine the two of those together very, very succinctly within a 4-year timeline. So it kind of, instead of having to choose one or the other, you could just combine all of them, which I think would be a great benefit, I'm hoping, for you.
Thanks, Jesse. Next question for Nate. Somebody is interested in what are, the options available for the arts, and within arts and sciences, and Jesse, I'd like to see if you could speak about this as well. When you say emphasis, what does that mean when somebody wants to emphasis in something, have that emphasize?
Am I first on this sort of stuff?
Sure, why don't you take a
Okay.
stab at it first, and then I'll add in.
Okay, so I just want to reframe the question to make sure I understand. So the idea is they want an emphasis in the arts within the College of Arts and Sciences or within Syracuse as a whole?
I think it's, and maybe this is, a great question, talking a little bit about the ability to explore, right? So you can, that interdisciplinary study aspect. And so what does that look like at the university to have an interdisciplinary study?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And let me couch this in terms of the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs, to go back to that whole liberal arts sort of discussion that we had at the big sort of near the middle of the presentation. And the idea is, one of the things that we do is we give you 24 credits for you to begin that exploration with throughout other colleges here in the College of Arts and Sciences. So let's say, for example, that you really wanted to major in something like economics, but you, at your heart of hearts, there's a part of you that is very, very artistic. And so you want to engage with, say, drama, or that you want to engage in painting or poetry or photography. The best way that we would start and how we would begin with that is we have plenty of leeway for you to begin by taking a single class. If every journey begins with a single step, then every area of emphasis begins with a single class. Let's take a class in Introduction to Photography. Let's take a class in Painting for non-majors. Let's take a class in ... as a way for you to begin to integrate it. And if that becomes more and more appealing to you, let's take a second class and maybe think about it as a minor, or a second or third class and think about it as a potential major and maybe one of those inter-university transfers. One of the hallmarks of flexibility and the notion of an interdisciplinary approach here at SU is the ability we give for, in the weaving of your story, for you to move between colleges to find, as Jesse said very, very, very adroitly, your fit, your story, your place. And we highlight that. But again, everything begins with taking that single class, that first class. If you're interested in it, we want to help foster your ability to explore. And I see Jessie smiling at me over there, sort of stuff. So I'm gonna turn it over to her for additional very, very erudite comments as well.
I'm also just gonna quickly add into this, and I'm actually gonna take a different approach just in case that we maybe didn't answer your question, because we're not necessarily sure if you mean like majoring in the arts and emphasis in that, or you want to major elsewhere, but possibly take art classes as well. So I want to make sure that we're hitting both ends of that, because the only other thing I will say is just from the student who asked this, said that they have an interest in arts, and what does it mean to have an emphasis in? And so some of you, as you look at colleges, at the schools and colleges at the university, and specifically as you dial down into some majors, you might see emphasis in or concentration in. And that just means that you're taking a very large idea, a larger major, like, for example, in the School of Art, our studio art program. That's a huge program. And about 2 years ago, we had our studio art program built out into about 8 different majors. So you could go specifically into jewelry working and metalsmithing. You could go into painting. You could go into sculpture. You could go into woodworking. I mean, there was a whole slew of opportunities with that. And so about 2 years ago, we actually combined all of those together. And so now as a student, if you go into our studio arts program, then you can actually emphasize or concentrate in one of those areas after your first year. So if you come in, you take a bunch of classes in different area, realize that painting is kind of your thing, then you can emphasize yourself in that. Many of our programs across campus do have concentrations and things like that. Another great example is political science. Political science is probably one of like the most overarching programs that I can think of on a college campus. And you have 6 concentrations to figure out once you're on campus. So I took a different stab in that, but hopefully for the student out there, we kind of went over that for you a little bit.
Thanks, Jesse. Jesse, I'm going to have you continue with this next question. So you have to pick a school to get into and can't just start undecided. I have so many interests, it's hard to pick just a college.
Yes. And I know that can be a struggle as an undecided student. I would say, that is the biggest question we get from undecided students. And honestly, even non-undecided students, a lot of students will say, well, I just apply into Syracuse, right? And I would say both fortunately and unfortunately, no, you don't. You do have to ultimately apply into a specific school or college. You cannot just apply into SU as like liberal arts or undecided or anything like that. I know that there are other colleges and universities out there that do offer that pathway, but one of the big benefits of Syracuse is that all of our programs are direct entry. And so what that means is a direct entry program is once you apply into that school or college and you are admitted into it, you never have to reapply. And so to kind of give you the opposite of what can happen at colleges and universities that don't have direct entry is you apply into a school or college as an overarching institution as undecided. And then as a sophomore, you actually apply into their concentrated program. This often happens with business programs in particular. You might not get in as a sophomore, but now you are 2 years into your curriculum. Are you going to transfer and kind of start over at a different college because you really want to be in business? Or are you going to stay there and just do something else that you're not really interested in? So one of the biggest benefits of being all of our programs direct entry is that once you're admitted, you know you're admitted, right? And then we have pathways once you're on campus for you to switch between the schools and colleges. So even if you're directly admitted into a program that ultimately just doesn't jive with you, is not what you want, you still have the opportunities to change that down the line. So I am giving you a little bit more of an answer than you asked for here, but kind of the neat and clean answer to that question is you always need to apply into a school and college. You cannot just apply undecided to Syracuse University.
Thanks, Jesse. Another question about being a student who's interested in biology, medicine, business, and finance. And I think one thing we didn't talk a little bit about tonight were our dual programs. So Nate, would you be able to discuss the duals between arts and sciences and some of the other colleges? And then Jesse, you can talk a little bit maybe about some of the other ones related to Newhouse and Whitman, just to give a sense of what's available to students who might be multi-interested.
Sure, we can absolutely begin that. And one of the most common, and again, I'm going to speak from the College of Arts and Sciences and sort of move out from there. One of the most common that we have is we have a dual program with Newhouse and the College of Arts and Sciences, where you can sort of come in and you can have a Newhouse major as well as a major in the College of Arts and Sciences, and you can kind of pursue that twofold interest that you might have. So let's say, for example, maybe you're really interested in public relations, but you're also interested in economics. Well, that's a wonderful blend that we can have. We have another dual program with our School of Education, which allows you to be, say, a mathematics education major as well as a math major. So you get both the education sort of background as well as the math focus. And in a lot of these cases, we have a very structured, slightly different structured curriculum that allows you more flexibility than, say, a student who would be singly enrolled in either just Newhouse or just the College of Arts and Sciences. We also have an exciting program that's developing with our friends in Whitman, where we've just added 2 new majors, international relations and economics, where we have a program with Whitman where you can be a dual with Whitman and Arts and Sciences. We have a fascinating program for anyone who's interested in engineering as well. It's called a combined program where you actually get a degree in engineering and a degree in the College of Arts and Sciences. So we've kind of taken the dual program and sort of beefed it up there. Usually that runs as a 5-year sort of program, but if you're really kind of on the fence, maybe you want to be a computer scientist, but maybe you're also really fascinated with physics or poetry, English textual studies as well, we can run those together as well. And again, those are just 3 of the sort of really prominent ones we have. We actually have people that do things with VPA and Arts and Sciences, even though we don't have a dual program. I have a student right now who has basically structured everything to the point of saying, I just can't decide between composition and the College of Arts and Sciences, and my math. And so what I want to do is I want to find a way to blend those 2 together. And so while we don't necessarily have a dual program, that flexible aspect that we have, the ability to work with people here in every college to sort of help you create that sort of path for you is here. So again, if it's something you're interested in and you don't necessarily see it there, by all means, reach out to someone and talk to someone, and we'd be more than happy to explain all of the opportunities that are here. And I think Jesse's going to pick up on some of that, some of the more particulars that I haven't discussed yet.
Absolutely. So just a big overarching thing to know about our duals, and I think Nate did an absolutely excellent job kind of talking about all of the different programs that work together, is to know about the duals is that they are set up as 4-year programs. So these are programs that Syracuse University has matched 2 curriculums from 2 different schools and colleges, matched all of like the liberal arts curriculum, all the curriculum in terms of the majors, and said this will work within a 4-year timeline. Ultimately speaking, you do need to be accepted by both of the schools and colleges in order to major across 2 different schools and colleges. So there's 2 different options for that. You can actually apply into our dual enrollment programs on your common application. So if you're sitting there, so I know there was a student out there who said like, I'm kind of interested in finance and business, but also biology and pre-med, like we actually have a dual enrollment program that I highly suggest you apply into, that you can start in finance and biology from day 1, add on the pre-health track, and then you are actually within that realm of exactly what you'd like to do. So know that our dual enrollment programs are set up for students to start as early as possible. There is some flexibility for students to add dual enrollment programs once they're on campus, but again, you ultimately need to be accepted into that second school and college. So it's a shorter application process that you'll have to do. And then the last thing I want to just talk about really quick is Nate mentioned a student who, all the students who do this, I'm always like, you're crazy and amazing, is that they're putting together 2 programs that are not a dual enrollment program. And we're talking about our BFA in composition in the College of Visual Performing Arts. So that's the School of Music for us, as well as a program in College of Arts and Sciences, which I missed what it was. But no, what was it, Nate? Math. Oh my gosh, this person is a left brainer, right brainer.
Well, and an important thing about this person is this person came in with no idea what he wanted to do. And he discovered.
Just found 2 passions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So just so all of you know, is that program, most of the times when I talk to a student, what I will say is that is not possible to do in a 4-year timeline. That is not a dual enrollment program. But the asterisk next to that is always going to be if you come in with enough credit. So let's say you take AP, dual enrollment, IB classes. We take a lot of those curriculums. We're very transfer credit friendly with those, is that you might actually start as a 1st-year student, but in terms of credits of how much are transferred in, you're actually starting as a 2nd-year student. That's happened for many, many students I've come across. And so they're actually given more time to work out all of that. So we'll never say that something is 100% impossible to do, but there are definitely some of those dual programs across different schools and colleges that will be more difficult to get done in a 4-year timeline.
Thank you so much, Jesse and Nate. I think that definitely highlights the amount of opportunities available to our students across those 10 schools and colleges. Related to that, Jesse, and I know this is a question we get often on the road and talking with students, what are our most popular majors? And I think that's obviously a tough one to answer, right? Given that we have over 200. How would you respond to that type of a question?
Oh, this is like my most loved/hated question that I get, because it's such a good question. Like, this is a really important question to ask colleges and universities, because especially as an undecided student, you want to make sure that you're going into a university or college that when you change your mind, because it's going to happen, you are still staying within a strong curriculum. So you want to make sure that programs across the board are strong. So that's why it's a great question. But just as Mike said, it's like my most hated question, because we have 200 majors and almost all of them are either in schools and colleges or even specific majors that have national rankings. So when I talk about them, I'm like, they're all good. But I would say it really also depends in what we're talking about the majors that we're most well known for. because when we're thinking of majors that are very popular on our campus in terms of we have a lot of students within them, to be honest, they're going to be very similar to most colleges and universities. You're going to have a lot of students in the STEM fields, the political sciences, kind of those, honestly, liberal arts areas. They tend to be popular at every college and university across the country. And so we're definitely going to have larger programs in that. But when we're thinking of popular majors of like what we're most known for, again, really difficult because I can give you all the statistics of we're a top 10 communications school. We're an R1 research institution. So all of our STEM students take advantage of being a top tier research institution in the country. We're a top 5 education school. Our sports management program is top 5. Our architecture program is number 3 in the country. In design, we're ranked in top 10. Our drama is top 25. Our film is 16. I mean, like I could go on, but now you're like, I'm bored, Jesse, please stop, right? But you get the gist. And that's what's really important to know when you ask that question is when the answer is so many different programs at different schools and colleges in different areas, then you know you can feel comfortable about changing your mind, that you're not going to an extremely strong program to honestly one that maybe you could do without, right? So that's kind of the thing to know about it. So good question, but difficult one to answer.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Our last question that we're going to have for tonight, because we are running out of time, is one that actually would take an entire hour to answer. Was from Emma about studying abroad. Actually, on October 7th, we're going to be having a virtual session with Syracuse Abroad. So I hope you can join us. You just received an email about that. And that will give full detail about studying abroad. But Nate, I'd like to pose a question off of that question. For undecided students, are they able to study abroad?
Absolutely. Syracuse University is one of the, I believe, and people can correct me if I'm wrong on this one of the big top 5 universities for study abroad. Approximately 40%, if not higher, of our students at some point in time study abroad during their career here at SU. And one of the, and I'm going to do a self-promotion shameless plug for advising at this thing. One of the things that your advisor will do from the very outset, we reach out to students in the middle of May to welcome them to the Orange family, to begin to ask them questions about what are your interests in, what are the things you'd like to pursue, how many of you would like to study abroad. We start that from the very beginning because then our minds start working and we start thinking about, okay, what are all the possible combinations that we can weave? Because we not only have, as you'll hear in the study abroad session, Syracuse centers, but we also are part of the World Partners Program. So if there's a place in the world that you would like to explore, we have a place for that. We have a way to fit that in. And as an undecided student, you sit in a very privileged position because one of the best things to do with study abroad is to start knocking off some of those liberal arts, some of those general education requirements. And through the assistance of your advisor, we can help weave a program for you to help you check off some of those boxes while also expanding your horizons. So absolutely, absolutely we can do that as an undeclared or undecided student. And I would strongly urge you, even if you know exactly what it is that you want to study, maybe you've had a revelation this evening and you know this is the area you want to explore. Study abroad is still an opportunity for you in any one of the 10 colleges. It might take a little more finagling for you and your advisor to work that out, but it's definitely something we want to consider. And as an undecided student, it's something I cannot recommend. In my first meeting with my students, I ask all of them to put up their hands who want to study abroad, and I say, this is something that we can work in every one of your curricula. Full stop. I cannot speak highly of it enough because it centers around the theme of our presentation this evening, which is really that of exploration. And widen the horizons, widen your purview sort of stuff. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Did I mention I really like study abroad?
I think you did. I want to thank you so much, Nate, and thank you so much, Jesse, for joining us tonight. Um, if you have further questions for Nate, for Jesse, for any of us in the Office of Admissions, feel free to contact us at orange@syr.edu. Our phone number is 315-443-3611. And then for the next 6 weeks, we're going to continue to have sessions related to academics at Syracuse, exploring different programs of interest. So if there was something today that maybe spurred an idea, you want to explore, STEM or communication or the arts, we hope you can join us for one of those sessions. They'll happen on Thursdays at 7 p.m. But I do just want to end by, just saying that you are at such a precipice of a moment of deciding what is next. I really encourage you to explore Syracuse, to discover what it means to be Orange. And if it is undecided, that's great. And we are welcoming you with open arms. So thank you so much, and have a great day. Go Orange.